A brother has asked me to explain the makruh times of salah and the detailed rulings relating to them. Remember, there are 3 times during which it is impermissible to perform salah. ثلاثة أوقات لا يصح فيها شيء من الفرائض والواجبات. Now, 2 are very easy to remember, and the 3rd one's very interesting. Once you've understood it, you will come to acknowledge how simple it is to work out all your prayer times. The first makruh time, when it is impermissible to offer your prayers, your fard prayers, your obligatory prayers, or your wajib necessary prayers, nafil prayers, voluntary prayers, qada prayers, or different forms of sujood, all is impermissible during these 3 times other than the asr of that day. And it is also permissible to recite during these times various litanies, awrad, masnoon du'as, or you can send salutations upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of this is permissible. So the first makruh time is عند طلوع الشمس إلى أن ترتفع, the rising of the sun until it has completely risen. So from the beginning of sunrise, that very moment when the rim of the sun appears, until the time when the sun has risen to that extent that the vision or the sight is dazed by looking at it. Now, the duration or the time period of this would be approximately 20 minutes from after sunrise, as in from the time when the rim of the sun appeared. This 20 minutes period is the first makruh time. The second makruh time is the sunset time. عند إسفرارها, from the time when it changes color before sunset. This is when the rays of the sun appear weak and pale until sunset. Again, the duration of this is from about 20 minutes before sunset till the actual sunset time. So the ulama say that the beginning of this makruh time is when the vision is no longer dazed when one looks at the sun. And this begins about 20 minutes before sunset. So the duration of these 20 minutes is the second makruh time, when it is impermissible, makruh tahrimi, prohibitively disliked, impermissible to perform any nafil prayers, voluntary prayers, to perform sajda, prostration, or any form of fard prayer, qaza prayer, as in qaza of the prayers of the past. But if you delayed your asr prayer of that day till this time, then you must perform your asr prayer during this makruh time, because this would be better than missing your prayer. Even though the obligation will be lifted, but you will still be sinful. Because to delay your Salatul Asr till these 20 minutes before sunset is haram. It is prohibited, and it is mentioned in a hadith as the prayer of a hypocrite, the prayer of a munafiq. So as I said in the beginning, these 2 makruh times are very easy to remember. 20 minutes after sunrise and 20 minutes before sunset. For example, if the sunrise is at 7:45, then the makruh time in which it is impermissible to perform these prayers will be from 7:45 till 8:05. And if the sunset time is 4:05, then the second makruh time will be from 4:45 till 4:05. Now the third makruh time is the most interesting one, and there is also a lot of confusion regarding it. Some people think that it is that zawal time when the sun declines, when the sun moves away from its midday zenith, from its peak, not realizing that that passing of the sun from its meridian is the actual beginning time of Zuhr. That marks the beginning of Zuhr time. And many people assume that 12 p.m. is the makruh time. They think that throughout the year, exactly 12 p.m. will be our makruh time, which is incorrect. Now this is very important to take note of. The actual third makruh time is the period between the Shari'i midday, the Islamic midday, and the actual midday. The Islamic or Shari'i midday is known as Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i, and the actual midday is called Nisfun Nahar al-Haqiqi. The question is, how do you work out the Shari'i midday and the actual midday, Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i and Nisfun Nahar al-Haqiqi? Now if you pay attention and try to understand this properly, it will make life very easy for those people who always complain about how complicated it is to understand or to work out these makruh times in Islam. Take note, from the beginning of Fajr prayer, from the beginning of As-Subh As-Sadiq, the time when Salatul Fajr begins till the sunset time, divide this time into 2 equal parts. Just pick up your local masjid timetable and check the start time of Salatul Fajr. And check the sunset time, or you can even find the sunset time online. For example, if according to your local masjid timetable, Salatul Fajr begins at 6:30 a.m. And I'm only presenting this as an example for understanding purpose. Not that you start quoting me in the future that Saqib Iqbal follows such and such timetable. This is just an example for your understanding. So from the beginning time of Fajr, which may be 6:30 a.m., till sunset time, which may be 4 p.m., Divide this into two equal parts where the first half ends and the second half begins. This marks the beginning of the Shari'i midday, the Islamic midday. Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i. That is the beginning of the third makruh time. So how many hours are between as-subh al-sadiq or tulu' al-fajr, the beginning of fajr time, till sunset? From 6:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. you have 9 hours and 30 minutes. Now what's the half of 9 hours and 30 minutes? Half of 9 hours is 4 hours and 30 minutes. And plus the 30 minutes, the half of that is 15 minutes. So 4 hours and 45 minutes is the half of 9 hours and 30 minutes. Is that clear? Now add the 4 hours and 45 minutes to the beginning of as-subh al-sadiq, tulu' al-fajr, to the beginning of fajr time, which was 6:30 a.m. So add 4 hours and 45 minutes to that. 6:30 a.m., 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30. Plus the 45 minutes, that would be 11:15, quarter past 11. Quarter past 11 is the beginning of Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i, also known as Ad-Dahwatul Kubra. That is the Islamic midday. That is the beginning of your third makruh time, provided that the start time of Fajr was 6:30 a.m. and sunset was 4 p.m. So the makruh time will begin at quarter past 11. So this also shows that it's not always 12 p.m. throughout the year. So you all know now, you all understand how to calculate and work out the beginning of the third makruh time. Now the question is, when does this makruh time end? It ends at the beginning of Zuhr time, which is right after the actual midday. Now how do you work out the actual midday? Nisfun Nahar al-Haqiqi. That is a lot easier than calculating the Shari'i midday. The actual midday is the nisf, is the middle of the time between the sunrise and sunset. For example, if the sunrise is at 20 to 8 and sunset time again is 4 p.m. The time between 20 to 8 and 4 p.m. is 8 hours and 20 minutes. What is the half of 8 hours and 20 minutes? 4 hours and 10 minutes. So let's add the 4 hours and 10 minutes to the time of sunrise, which was 20 to 8. So let's use 7:40 to add 4 hours and 10 minutes so everyone can understand. 7:40, 8:40, 9:40, 10:40, 11:40. So that's 4 hours. Add 10 minutes, 11:50. So 10 to 12 is the actual midday. That is when the sun is at its midday zenith, at its peak, right above you, عند استوائها إلى أن تزول. When the sun is on its meridian until it declines or passes its meridian. As soon as the sun passes its midday zenith, which happens within minutes, that is the beginning of Zuhr time. So this time between the Shari'i midday and the Haqiqi midday, and some minutes after that, this is your makruh time. So from quarter past 11 till 10 to 12 is the time between Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i and Nisfun Nahar al-Haqiqi. The moment the sun moves from its peak, that is the beginning of Zuhr time. And this time in between the two is your third makruh time. And this makes it so easy for everyone to work out their Zuhr time. From sunrise to sunset, the middle of that is when the sun is at its midday zenith. As soon as the sun passes its midday zenith, that is the beginning of Zuhr time. And the time before that is your makruh time. And the beginning of that time is Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i, also known as Ad-Dahwatul Kubra. Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i وهو من وقت طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس. Now another important point to remember is that this is in the Hanafi school. The third makruh time in the Hanafi school is a lot longer than the other schools. This makruh time in the other mazahib is very short. Their makruh time doesn't begin from Nisfun Nahar al-Shari'i, the Islamic midday. In the other mazahib, this makruh time actually begins when the sun is at its peak. And they have other conditions. For instance, in the Shafi'i school, they don't have this makruh time on Jumu'ah. And in the Shafi'i mazhab, the haram of Makkah al-Mukarramah is exempt from makruh times. And in the other mazahib, the prayers that you cannot perform during these makruh times are different. The rulings relating to them are different than that of the Hanafi school. For instance, in the Shafi'i mazhab, you can perform your fard prayer, your qadha prayer during these makruh times. And it is impermissible to perform an-naflul mutlaq, meaning general voluntary prayers for reward. Or those prayers, the sabab of which is found after the prayer is impermissible during these makruh times. For example, the nawafil of ihram. Now ihram is the sabab for the nawafil. You offer your nawafil first, and the sabab of the nawafil is after the nawafil. Therefore, those voluntary prayers in which the sabab is found after the prayer are impermissible during these makruh times. And if the sabab is found before the prayer, then even that nafil prayer is permissible during these makruh times. For example, Tahiyyatul Masjid. You enter the masjid. Now the entering of the masjid is the sabab for the nawafil of the masjid. The cause is found first, the sabab is found first, the prayer comes after. So such voluntary prayers are permissible even during these makruh times in the Shafi'i Madhab, as long as one doesn't plan and deliberately enter in the masjid during those makruh times. So in the other mazahib, the rulings are different. And there is no concept of nisfun nahar ash-shar'i. In the Shafi'i Madhab, this midday makruh time does not begin from the Islamic midday. This is in the Hanafi school. So according to the Hanafi school of thought, the beginning of this makruh time is the middle of the beginning of Fajr and sunset. And for the beginning of Fajr, you will find in the books Tulu'ul Fajr, As-Subhul Sadiq, there is a true dawn, As-Subhul Sadiq, and there is As-Subhul Kazib, the false dawn. Before the beginning of Fajr time, before As-Subhul Sadiq, when the sun is minus 33 degrees below the eastern horizon, a vertical light appears in the sky, and under that light the entire horizon remains black. That vertical light is known as As-Subhul Kazib, the false dawn. After that, when the sun reaches minus 18 degrees, As-Subhul Sadiq, the true dawn breaks from under it, which then spreads to the southern and northern ends. Now these are two different kinds of light. The vertical glow is As-Subhul Kazib, whereas this horizontal light which spreads and then it rises upwards, the appearance or the spreading of this horizontal light marks the beginning of Fajr time. So Fajr does not begin with that vertical glow. Hence why it's called As-Subhul Kazib, the false dawn. As-Subhul Sadiq takes place after As-Subhul Kazib, and that horizontal brightness appears after this vertical glow. And the brightness of the horizontal glow increases until it spreads along the entire horizon. The appearance or the spreading of that glow is the beginning of Fajr, which is called Tulu'ul Fajr or As-Subhul Sadiq. And to make it easy for you, and to avoid all these technical details, I've presented a simple example to check your local masjid timetable to understand the beginning of Salatul Fajr. And once you have fully comprehended the methodology of calculating these makruh times, then you can easily appreciate these technicalities and working out Fajr time through observation. So the beginning of this makruh time is the middle of the beginning of Fajr and sunset. And that is Nisfun Nahar Ash-Shar'i, also known as Ad-Dahwatul Kubra. And in English you can call it the Shar'i midday or the Islamic midday. And the moment the sun declines from its peak, that is the beginning of your Zohar prayer. And this time between the Shar'i midday and the beginning of Zohar prayer is your makruh time. Now these are the three makruh times which are mentioned in the hadith of Sayyidina Uqbat ibn Amir radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, which is found in the Sunan of Abi Dawud, and in fact in the majority of Sihah Sitta, the 6 Sahih books of hadith. So let's summarize this now. In conclusion, there are three makruh times: the 20 minutes after sunrise, and the 20 minutes before sunset, and the time between the Shar'i midday and the beginning of Zohar prayer, which is right after the Haqiqi midday. And what are the rulings relating to these makruh times? During these makruh times, it is impermissible to pray any fard prayer, wajib prayer, qaza prayer, voluntary nafil prayers. All are impermissible, all are prohibited, with the exception of the fard asr prayer of the same day. Even though the obligation will be lifted, but it will still be haram for one to delay the asr prayer till that time. And during these makruh times, it is permissible to recite your general awrad, your masnoon litanies, your du'as, salawat upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. And some additional points: in the Hanafi school, it is impermissible to perform any nafil prayers after the beginning of Salatul Fajr, and even after performing Salatul Fajr, it is impermissible to perform any nafil prayers, any voluntary prayers. It is permissible to perform your qaza prayers, the prayers of the past that you have missed. But you should avoid performing your qaza prayers publicly. And after sunrise, you can't even perform your qaza prayers for the 20 minutes. In the Hanafi school, that's if you are a Hanafi. And if you are a Shafi'i, then according to the Shafi'i school, you can perform your qaza prayer, your fard prayers during makruh times. But it is prohibited for a Hanafi to do this. And it is impermissible for a Hanafi to pray any nafil prayers After the beginning of Fajr time and even after performing the Fard of Fajr, it is impermissible to pray any Nafil prayers. And before performing the Fajr, with the exception of the two emphasized Sunnahs of Fajr, it is impermissible for a Hanafi to pray any Nafil prayers. And also after Salatul Asr, it is impermissible to perform any Nafil prayers. But one can perform the Fard Qaza prayers, provided that they are performed before the beginning of the 20 minutes Makruh time before sunset. During those 20 minutes, it is impermissible to offer the unperformed prayers of the past, the Qaza prayers, the missed prayers of the past. You can only perform that day's Asr prayer, even though you will be sinful for delaying it. And in the Hanafi school, it is also makruh to offer Nafil prayers between the time of sunset and the Fard of your Maghrib prayer. And it is also makruh to perform any Nafil prayers or any Sunnah prayers if you have very little time remaining to perform your Fard prayer.